All right. So here we're going to alter this gene. We're going to take it in a little bit of a taper. This is a very, very simple one. And we're also going to shorten. You see the hem less 3 centimeters. It took me a while to get to that measurement because I had to make all of the genes match. So, like we were saying, for our gene turn up, it's 4 centimeters. So here's our original. This is where the gene is currently at this time. And we want it to be 3 centimeters shorter than that. And we want our turn up to be 4 centimeters. So we need to be cutting 1 centimeter below where the current hem is. If that makes sense. At the end of the day, you can just do your maths. If you want it to be 3 less, then we want a 4 centimeter turn up. And as you can see, it's a centimeter below there where our original is. So I'm just going to mark that off straight as I can. And I'm going to put a pin kind of in the middle just so that these two layers don't shift around too much. And I'll just cut that off. I'm going to quickly do that on the other hem. So hems are cut. I'm going to turn this inside out. So yeah, this taper, it's a really, really simple one. It's kind of just at the bottom. What are we doing? You see here, this is showing the pocket. And this point here is where this stud is going to be. So from that stud, I need to measure down 40 centimeters. Just going to give this an iron to make it easier for me to work. So from that stud, measuring down 40. There it is. And at the bottom, it needs to be 3 centimeters narrower. So if we were doing this on a chino or anything without this heavy top stitch, we would try to take 1.5 from one side, 1.5 from the other side. But with a denim and this fell seam with a double stitch, you have to pay me quite a bit before I'm going to alter them. So for now, we're just taking it out on the outside. And that's basically that. So we're going to stitch down this line. Then we'll trim this down to 2 centimeters. And then we'll come back and carry on with the hem. So, one thing I did forget to say about stitching this side piece is I always put a few pins just so that the machine is always pushing. You don't want this to then mismatch at the bottom. It's like this one, that mismatch. I mean, I judge myself for that, but sometimes it happens. And the pins will help you to prevent a little bit of that. And then also, this one, we can put our marks here and do this stripe. And then this, this leg, we don't have to measure from the top again, or we can just put the legs together like that and transfer the measures so that, we can save some time. And then also the measures can be drawn on the correct side, because you always want to stitch top to bottom. And then lastly, you usually will do as close to the original as possible. So I should have done this in gold, but our gold thread is running out at this time. So I just did this in black. Also because I know this client isn't too fussy. But generally we'd have done that in gold. And this overlocking we also did more or less in gold. We did it in a brown. So that's that. Better not have any questions at this time. From there, we can then iron this to the side. I'm going to use the sleeve board. You can use one of the forms. And on a denim, this side seam is always ironed to the back because of the pocket where it's got a top stitch. So we're just going to iron that to the back. And of course, because we're on the sleeve board, no steam, because we don't want to wreck the wood. Also, one thing I can say here Here where we join on this original seam, just make sure there's quite a long back stitch there, because that's kind of like a weak point. And that's always the point where it ends up starting to unravel. Now, because this seam allowance is together, we don't have to unpick anything. So it's not such a drama. But yeah, in general, just stitch there quite a long section. Obviously, you'll do that on the other leg. And then we're going to go for the hem. So the hem measurement that we have is 4 centimeters. And that is a 2 centimeter turn up times 2. Just flattening that out from the original. Okay, so I'm going to start by finding my tape measure. So now this 2 centimeters, because this is very bulky, I'm making it like 1.8, 1.9, because otherwise my next 2 with all of this bulk is going to end up being like 2.25. So I go on my seam allowance, I go halfway along the leg, along the hem, I go to the other seam allowance, I mean 2 centimeters is fine, it's not going to kill anyone. But I just try and get it at a little bit less than 2 centimeters, just because I'm extra. Then I go to the middle again. Two centimeters. Okay. And then I'll take it flat and just iron the whole hem. And just turn that around a little bit and iron it again. So now I've got our first 2 centimeter turn. And then we're going to go back and do it all again. So fun. Job so nice to do it twice. So I'm going to turn that as sharply as I can, making sure that that's 2 centimeters. So here we really need to make sure that our seam allowance is matching. And here we're going to put a pin and make sure that the head of the pin is on the bottom of the jean and sticking a little bit out. This is going to make our sewing work a lot easier in a minute. Now, of course, this doesn't happen in the factory. In the factory, they just quickly do a 2-second job, which is fine. But for the price that we get paid for this, we've got to do it to a certain standard. And especially matching those seams, that's like number one. So yeah, just carrying on, ironing, and then just pinning. Making sure that it's nice and flat. So you really only need these 4 pins to keep that more or less in place. And then I'll do the same thing, I'll just flatten that. and just give the whole thing a nice iron. You know, with those 4 pins, the rest of the hem will just kind of fall into place. So you can just make sure that everything is indeed in place. I'm just giving this iron. Here we go. And that's that. From there, of course, we'll do the other side, and then we'll pop to the iron, to the machine. Okay, we're now going to stitch the hems. One thing when you thread this, if there's a round disc here, you're going to go through that and just check your tension. Often with a top stitch, you're going to need a bit more tension. So just stitch a little bit, see how's the tension, just fine. Then we can come over here. You're wanting to start on the inside seam, so that's where the top stitching is going to be. I'm just going to undo a piece and just stitch a little bit over that top stitching, because I want to see how's my stitch length in comparison and how's the color, etc. Because of course we want this to look as similar to the original as possible. So that one I think is very fashion. Let's begin the top stitch there, and then stitch or the hem width where we're stitching. It's on this number 2, this half inch mark on that number 2. So kind of between the 1 and the 2 there somewhere. So if you measure it, it's like 1 1/4 centimeter, 1 3/4 centimeters, something like that. Just a little bit more than 1 1/2. Back stitch a little bit. So obviously on this piece, very, very thick. So we're going to go very slowly. And then pressing the foot down so that the foot is always touching the fabric. And we're just going to go around, making sure it's straight, touching that 2 with the edge of the fabric. I like to cut that off before I get there. Let's just high roll. And we're just going to keep going. Again, this portion a little bit thick, so we're going to go slowly. And make sure that the foot is always touching the fabric. And we'll get back to where we began. And we'll just do a bit of a back stitch. And there we are. Fashion of fabulousness. Awesome.